Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. Tonight, we are here to declare a champion for Season 13 of the series here at the Kansas Speedway for 150 miles of competition here tonight. First time ever in league history that the series has only been 11 weeks instead of 12. Of course, had to skip a week in the early goings of the season as the race would have fallen on Christmas Day, and no real reason to be holding a race on a holiday quite like that. No one would have showed up. So we just decided 11 weeks is going to be the way to go. And tonight, we're going to be crowning a champion here at the Kansas Speedway. First time ASRC has visited this track, and believe it or not, it was only opened back in 2001. Originally, the banking was a little bit less severe than this. It got reconfigured in 2012, and that's when they added 17 to 20 degree progressive banking through the corners. And of course, this track hosts all of the major NASCAR series, including ARCA, and it has held a few IndyCar races in its time as well. And believe it or not, despite this being one of the smaller tracks, you can actually see it behind the info box down there. This track has hosted the Grand Am series as well on that little infield road course. It's a very small, very silly infield road course, but it is an infield road course nonetheless. Track temp here today, 84 degrees. Not great, not terrible. Definitely a little bit cooler than some of the other tracks we've been to here this season. 73 degrees ambient temperature. And I'll tell you what, this weather box might be looking a whole lot different when we kick off season number 14, because tomorrow the iRacing.com platform gets its biggest content update possibly ever with the introduction of its Tempest system, which is a complete overhaul of the Sims weather dynamics. Of course, we won't be getting the rain that they're adding here on the ovals, but the rest of the weather features are still going to be playing a huge factor here in all future races. Weather's going to be a lot more realistic and accurate to how it is in the real world at any given time at each of these locations. That said, though, that's a problem for future us to deal with. Right now, drivers are making their way down to the starting grid, so how about we get to take a look down at how things will be shaken off here tonight. Starting off on the pole here in the number 4 Kodak Max entry, that is going to be Mr. Nick Fuller, a rookie driver here, taking the pole in that 4 machine, with a 30.61 to his name. Driver out of Rochester, New York. Going to be taking home the pole here this evening. Starting his outside in the number 97, that's going to be Jarrett Bolyard in... I'm actually not 100% sure what Jarrett Bolyard's in down there. I can't quite tell. Oh, there it is. That's the white Good Wrench service car as opposed to the black one that I believe is going to be driven by Mike Moultrie. Starting back in position number 3, though, that's going to be the 00 of Garrett Hess in that purple Winter Rider entry. Garrett Hess mathematically has locked himself in as the champion already by virtue of showing up to tonight's event. His closest competition of Mr. Brian Simbelski, a full almost 60 points out in the championship, and of course no one else is anywhere near close enough to touch that. So Garrett Hess has won the championship by virtue of being here, but all these other drivers are going to be competing for the trophy, competing for a little bit of bragging rights, and getting some experience under their belt before we head over to the next gen car for season 14 of the ASRC Oval Series. Speaking of drivers coming in for the next gen series, though, starting back in position number 4, that's going to be the 29 of Tyler Aspinall in the Giant Eagle entry, followed by the 17 of Daniel Wiles. That's going to be another rookie driver and the fastest driver in practice in the Amp Energy entry. Back in position number 6, that's going to be Mike Moultrie Jr. in the 3, the driver who took home the win last season in the Whipple Superchargers entry. Back in 7th, that's league admin Jason Gardner, followed by the 96 of Charles Gettings in the Budweiser entry. That's going to be the CZ Robotics 24 of Corey Logan, followed by the Beefy Motorsports Liquimolly 38 of Brandon Feeney. It's going to be then Michael Sparks back in the 42 Machine Rock New paint scheme here tonight in the Mac Tonight entry, followed by the 15 SM Racing Products of Garrett Streets and his teammate of Jeremy Morrow starting behind him, along with the unsponsored 78 of Derek Murphy. Green flag up in the air here for the championship event of season number 13 here at Kansas for 150 miles of competition. Nick Fuller off to an early lead here. Not quite able to pull up the gap here at Kansas. These drivers are saying that depending on the line you run on new tires, you can go full throttle all the way around this track. So I don't think it'll quite be like the super speedway racing that we saw in the past, as we have a couple of drivers in the outside wall. That's Jason Gardner and I believe also Charles Jetting scraping against the outside wall there. So we're not going to quite be seeing pack racing like we saw, say, back at Daytona, back at Michigan. But this is still a track where these drivers can be mostly flat out pretty much all the way around, and drafting is going to be a pretty big deal here as we have drivers jockeying for position all throughout the field right now. Nick Fuller still leads the way in that yellow Kodak Max number 4. That's going to be championship winner at this point. The 00 of Garrett Hess, followed by the rookie driver of Daniel Wiles back in position number 3. Daniel Wiles running in that Amp Energy number 17, side by side with Garrett Hess for the runner-up position right now. Already 2 laps in the books here. Despite this being a 1.5 mile track, it looks like the lap times these drivers are setting a little bit faster than at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, which we headed to back in the early goings of this season. And that is one of the tracks that Brian Sabelski took home a win at. And of course, Sabelski unfortunately unable to compete here this evening. So it's going to be a big question mark on who manages to make this track work here this evening, because Charlotte was really the only other track on the schedule that was even remotely close to this at all. Starting to single file out here just a little bit up in the front, a little bit further back, side by side for Jarrett Boyard and Mike Moultrie Jr. Last week, Mike Moultrie was running in the Good Wrench number 3. This season still running, or this race still running the same pattern, but it is not Good Wrench this time. Of course, that being Dale Earnhardt's number 3. This time around, he is running for Whipple Superchargers, driver out of Fresno, California, as the other Good Wrench inspired entry hits a little bit of a bobble just behind. That's Jarrett Boyard having a little bit of trouble in that number 97 machine. Side by side further back, Jason Gardner, Corey Logan duking it out side by side here. Gardner really trying to make the high line work, and he's sort of doing it. Doesn't look like there's any damage on the back of that right rear corner panel, although we did see him smack the wall a couple times on corner exit. This course currently is the battle for the 9th position right here, side by side. Right now, of course, Garrett Hess, Brian Sabelski, first and second in the championship. Both of them are pretty much locked in where they are, but the next battle is going to be the battle for third between Jason Gardner and Derek Murphy, who's currently at the tail end of the field right now. So that is the first battle in the championship that can still be changed here in tonight's event. And right now, things are looking really good for that 93 of Jason Gardner, up 5 positions over his competition of Derek Murphy. And of course, the two of them are battling for the final position on the podium. And if Murphy and Gardner both have really bad nights, then that entry for Garrett Streets has back in 116 points to his name. He could potentially be walking away with a podium in the championship as well. Streets currently running just in front of Gardner right here, and in a little bit of a hornet's nest right in front of him, Tyler Aspinall, Brandon Feeney duking it out here. Of course, they are all battling it out for the 6th position. Aspinall last week was unable to attend, but we saw him make his debut race back at Watkins Glen, where he finished 4th position. And that, of course, was his debut race here with the league. So Aspinall trying to get a little bit of experience under his belt before we switch to the Gen 4. And honestly, that seems to be the trend with a lot of these rookie drivers out here in the league, as we are side by side up at the front of the field. The battle is heating up for the lead. But a lot of these rookie drivers, and that's actually all 3 of these drivers, Nick Fuller, Mike Moultrie Jr., Daniel Wiles, all either making their first or second races here with the league here tonight. All 3 of these drivers, pretty much their goal right now is to get some experience under their belt, get some extra seat time, so that when they head to the next gen car next season, they have a little bit more to play with. Of course, the next gen here on the iRacing.com platform, not the next gen, excuse me, the Gen 4 car here on the iRacing.com platform uses an identical body to the ARCA car that we're driving here this season. Just a bit more horsepower under the hood. So all these drivers anyone who's been having trouble keeping the ARCA car under their feet is going to have a little bit more difficulty next season as we just give the car more horsepower and call it a day. Daniel Wiles now all the way down to 7th from that battle, up in the lead as he scrapes against the outside wall, still sinking back to 8th, down to 9th. And here comes Jeremy Morrow, going to be knocking him down to 10th, just like that. -5 for Daniel Wiles, rookie driver in the AMP Energy machine. Still in the early goings of this one. We are only 5 minutes in, only about 11 laps in the books. Plenty of time for this driver to come back up to the front of the field here. Wiles making his first start here in the league. I'll tell you what, he was running really good up there. All of them in front of Garrett Hess in that 00. So everyone has something to show for our championship leader coming into tonight's event. A little bit further up, Brandon Feeney right on the quarter panel of Garrett Streets here. Feeney in that 38 machine running part-time this season. He was the runner-up in the championship last season, with Garrett Streets in that 15 actually was the driver who took home the championship last season. Feeney coming into tonight's event running back in the 13th position in the championship. Garrett Streets back in 5th in the championship right now. So neither of these drivers going to be contending for a podium or a championship here in season number 13, but it's still anyone's game here as to who could potentially take home the race win, and that alone still etches your name in the record books of the ASRC Oval Series, even if you don't necessarily manage to put a championship to your name. And of course, next season, going to be throwing everything these drivers have gotten used to in terms of format out the window. It's going to be the most radical change the league has ever seen in its race formatting. Going to be running a 36-week real-world NASCAR-inspired season in that Gen 4 car, and the season's going to be inspired by the 2003 NASCAR season, going to be using a point scheme very similar to the 2003 points in real-world NASCAR. Of course, the big difference there is that there will still be bonus points awarded to drivers who manage to have clean races, because of course here in ASRC, racing clean is one of the biggest emphases of the league. So that will be one of the big deals carrying over into next season, despite the format change, is racing clean is going to net you a couple extra points, and sometimes that is all it takes to make the difference in the championship. Currently looking up at the battle for the lead right now, Mike Moultrie Jr. and Nick Fuller duking it out for the lead. Just behind is Jarrett Boyard in the number 97 machine. Boyard, another rookie driver who made his debut this season. So 3 rookie drivers leading the field over our current championship contender right now, Mr. Garrett Hess, and in front of last season's champion, Mr. Garrett Streets. And I'll tell you what, that's really going to be getting me excited for what these drivers are going to be able to do next season in that Gen 4 car. A little bit further back, Jason Gardner duking it out with Brandon Feeney for 7th. Gardner still trying to rip the high line in that ASRC Toyota Camry, and it looks like he's managing to make it work a little bit better this time around. In the early goings back on those fresh tires, we saw him have a couple of bumps against the outside wall on corner exit, but this time around looking a little bit smoother there. A little bit further back, Feeney now battling with Daniel Wiles. Of course, Wiles was up at the front of this race only a couple laps ago, falling all the way back to the 9th position, down 4 from where he qualified. Now just on the long and difficult climb back up to the front. Brandon Feeney going down below the apron, trying to use any amount of track he can to get a little bit more speed, as we see Gardner scrape against the outside wall again. Imagine to keep it pointed in the right direction. That's half the battle sometimes, and it doesn't look like there's really any damage on that number 93 machine. But he's definitely going to have to be careful, because those impacts against the outside wall, especially with them all being in the same spot, that is going to add up over time. And it's definitely not going to do him any sort of favors here in the long run of this race. Of course, this is one of the full-length ARCA races here this season. As we have a little bit of a separate pack forming back at the tail end of the field. Corey Logan, Jeremy Morrow, Michael Sparks, and Derek Murphy nearly going 3 wide here down into turn number 1, but they back out of it just a little bit. Currently Derek Murphy up +2, Jeremy Morrow +1, Sparks -1, and Logan -5 here. Coming into tonight's event, Corey Logan in that CZ Robotics 24 is being scored 8th in the championship standings, only 5 points behind Michael Sparks. So there is battles going on here that have implications on the championship. Even if it isn't for the overall title, all these drivers are still out here competing for race 1, still competing to do as good as they possibly can. But at the end of the day, as long as you're reaching your goals as a driver, and that's pretty much what it's all about. Not everyone comes into this league hoping, or at least planning, I guess would be better to say, to just take home the championship, win every race. For some people, they just know that that's not always a realistic expectation to set for yourself. I mean, I know when I first joined this league, I was not a very good driver. And I was posting my race perspectives on YouTube back when I joined this league. We have a little bit of trouble. That was Tyler Aspinall looked like having a little bit of a scrape against the outside wall. But generally a little bit of connection issues there for Aspinall. Like when I started joining ASRC, my first original goal was originally top 10s, then eventually it turned into getting top 5s. I've never won in this league. I've never won in any of the leagues I compete in, actually. But generally, I'm someone who considers improving my position by itself is generally a win in my book, but especially being able to walk away with a top 10 and top 5, that is always a good feeling to have. Speaking of drivers in the top 5, though, there's our championship leader. Garrett Hess in the 00 has fallen back another couple positions here. Garrett Streets is up +8 right now in that 15 machine. I'll tell you what, not able to run full time here this season. Had a couple of unlucky races in the early going of things, but that 15 machine is still absolutely showing out here. There was a reason he took home the championship back in season number 12. Of course, Garrett Street's one half of the SM Racing Products team, along with his teammate back in 12th of Jeremy Morrow. That's the S and the M for Streets and Morrow in SM Racing Products. Started their organization, I think I want to say close to a year ago now. As Garrett Hess going to be the next driver to meet his fate with the outside wall. Going to lose a position to Streets there, and going to lose a position to Aspinall as well. But the SM Racing Products team decided they weren't quite happy with any of the gear on the market that they were looking to be getting. And so they decided to build it themselves. And they said, you know what? That was kind of fun. Maybe we can make a business out of this. And now here they are making their own sim racing gear, selling it. smracingproducts.com. And they've been on board here with the league for pretty much as long as they've been around. Proud title sponsor here of the ASRC Oval Series. And it's great to have these drivers on board. Great to see them being out there competitive here in the field as well. Streets has been able to put on a heck of a show, both this season and in last season as well. Drivers spreading out here just a little bit 2 by 2 in the upper part of the mid-pack. Streets, Fuller, Hess, Aspinall all duking it out here. Hess trying to keep it all the way up against the wall. And it seems to be working out for him, following in the footsteps of Garrett Streets here, who is now up +9, by the way. Streets is having one of his best runs that we've seen out of him all of season 13 right now here. Big slide up for Nick Fuller there. That was a little bit scary to see. Going up in front of the 29 of Tyler Aspinall. Aspinall is down below him. Not quite able to clear him and make the move right on back here. Going to be 27 laps complete, or excuse me, 28 laps complete here once we cross the line. Already a quarter of the way through this thing, been green all the way through. I'll tell you what, despite this being one of the full-length ARCA races here this season, these drivers are being really patient with each other, making the laps times click by pretty quickly. Right now, current best time on the speedway looks like a 38.9 from Daniel Wiles. Right now, lap times have fallen off a little bit from the personal best. Right now, everyone's setting lap times in the 32-second range. Our race leader last time by a 32.49 for Mike Moultrie Jr., 32.51 for Bolliard and Streets. Well, around the field, everyone's still setting pretty competitive lap times here. And it's no surprise considering how bunched up we are here in the mid-pack. Everyone trying to vie for position here. Actually, let's get a top-down view of this whole battle going on here. As pretty much third on back to seventh are all in a little bubble here. Mike Moultrie Jr. and Jarrett Bolliard have pulled up to about a 1.5 lead over the rest of the field. Of course, one of the big questions that came up in pre-race was going to be green flag pit stops. Green flag pit stops at this track are a little bit tricky. It is very high speed, and coming off the banking as sharp as it is here, as we go 3 wide here. Green flag pit stops going to be really difficult for some of these drivers. They were saying that when they were practicing it, they were having to do all sorts of crazy things with the brake bias to keep the car stable when they were making those green flag stops in practice. So I think a couple of drivers here in the field are probably hoping that a caution flag comes out when their pit window opens so they don't have to deal with that. And frankly, I think if a caution flag is going to come out here tonight, if it's not from this battle we've got going on here for 3rd through 7th, it's going to be when these drivers attempt to make green flag pit stops. Still really anyone's game here in this blanket. Nick Fuller down in the Kodak Max entry, down on the bottom, along with Tyler Aspinall following down there. Otherwise, everyone else, Streets, Wiles, and Hess, trying to stick it up to the high line, make the outside line work here. Of course, at the beginning of this season, we got the oval refresh that completely redid how track temperatures work over the course of a race. And we've seen these tracks become a lot more dynamic, a lot more open, and where drivers can actually run and still be competitive. I'll tell you what, with Tempest coming out tomorrow, again, rain on ovals is not going to be a thing. It's not going to be raining here at Kansas anytime soon. But the changes to how the weather works outside of precipitation is going to carry its way over to the ovals. And I'm curious to see if we're going to see even more different strategies start to play out in terms of the racing line over the course of a run. Once again, send it 3 wide here at Kansas. Why not? Might as well. Wiles going for a big move on the outside, and he manages to make it stick over Streets and over Hess. Still doing it out 2 by 2 further up here between Aspinall and Fuller. Brandon Feeney looks like he's going to be the first driver to make the call to come down pit lane here on lap number 35. Feeney's taking home a couple of wins here in the league by running a bit of an alternate pit strategy. I'm curious to see if Feeney's trying to see if he can't short pit the field and one stop it once again. Sure enough, going to be 4 tires and fuel for that 38. I think that's exactly what he's going to be trying to do here. See if he can't make the pit strategy play off for him. How about a look up here at the front of the field? This is the battle for the lead between Mike Moultrie, Jarrett Bolliard. This time around, Moultrie not running a good wrench car the same way that Bolliard did when they first met a couple of races ago. Had to differentiate them between the black Goodyear car and the white Goodyear car. This time around, a little bit easier to tell between the two of them. And right now, Mike Moultrie Jr. is leading laps. He took home the win last week at Bristol, followed by Jason Gardner back in second, Garrett Hess back in third over at Bristol. And I'll tell you what, Mike Moultrie still in the early goings of this race, but we could see him be the driver that takes home win number 2 here this season. It's been pretty diverse here in terms of wins so far in season number 11. Garrett Hess took home 5 wins to his name. Took home Daytona, Dover, Iowa, Michigan, and Milwaukee. Then Brian Sabelski back in second in the championship, took home 2 wins back at Charlotte and the Indianapolis Raceway Park, and that's been all over the place. Jonathan Cofield, which we haven't seen since he took home his win at Phoenix back in round 3 of the season. That was the only win to his name. Then, of course, a couple weeks ago, Nico Morelli, in a little bit of a shocker, took home the win at Watkins Glen. Then last week, of course, Mike Moultrie Jr., our current race leader, took home the win at Bristol. As once again, this battle further back in the mid-pack is still going on pretty hard here. Let's take a top look down at this whole battle. Currently, the close battle is between Wiles and Aspinall here, but still your top 3 through back to about 7th here are still all in drafting distance of each other, I should say. Vinny is back out on the speedway right now, currently being scored a lap down, so he might be hoping that either a caution comes out and he gets the lucky dog, or maybe, depending on how long everyone else takes to pit, he might be able to get back on the lead lap here. It's always been a risky play with how that 38 has tried to make his pit stops work. But who knows, it might just work out for him. We could see that 38 Affini, even if he is last place a lap down right now, we could see him be the driver taking home the win here this season. Aspinall, Fuller, and Wiles, the closest battle on the speedway here, and nearly contact there between Aspinall and Wiles as we are side by side for the race lead. Jarrett Bolyard makes the move on Mike Moultrie. He's not going to be able to get the stick. Yes, he is. I was almost sure that Moultrie was going to be able to dive it down low there on corner exit, take the lead back from Bolyard, but not quite able to. So Bolyard will be taking home at least 1 bonus point here for having led a lap. Of course, here in this championship event, the points don't really matter for either of these drivers because they both are making their debut here in the past couple of races, but battling for a win is battling for a win, and every little bit counts. As we start to get ready to reach the halfway point here, Corey Logan going to be the next driver to make a stop. He's already back out on the track being scored. Now 2 laps down as the leaders cross by right then and there. So that's going to be putting that 24 Corey Logan in a pretty difficult position here. Take a moment, let's look on board with Mr. Jarrett Bolyard, see what these drivers are seeing from the onboard view. Actually, no, we'll go back to Mr. Nick Fuller and see what is going on board that Kodak Max number 4 machine. Out for the lead, heating up here as we see some drivers starting to make their way down pit lane. Lap traffic also starting to become a factor here. But I'll tell you what, race fans, what a crazy event we have going on here at Kansas. Your top 5 drivers right now, well, not anymore as we have Mike Moultrie Jr. come down pit lane, but your top 5 drivers about 30 seconds ago were all rookie drivers making their debut races here in the league either tonight or within the past 2 races. And they're all leading this field all the way around, but we're starting to see green flag pit stops come into play for our race leaders. Hess, Moultrie Jr., and Michael Sparks all came down last time by. Now we see Aspinall come down. Looking around the field, it looks like the general call is 4 tires and fuel. We'll see if that ends up being the case for Aspinall as well as he makes his way down to his pit box here. Right on the dime for the halfway point here of tonight's race as all of these drivers make their way down. Jason Gardner also making his way down here, and Jarrett Bolliard going to be the next driver to be coming down here. Sure enough, 4 tires and fuel is going to be the call for Aspinall, and it looks like 4 tires and fuel is basically the call for everyone around the field right now. And now that just puts us in an interesting pit situation here. Everyone is pitting around here on lap 48 to lap 50. Except Brandon Feeney. Of course, you got to remember, Feeney pitted a full nearly 10 laps ago. He pitted back on 34. So, excuse me, actually more than a full 10 laps ago. I swear I know how to do math here. But that looks like it might just rotate Feeney around to being our new race leader. And provided he has fuel to make it to the end, provided that he conserves his tires well enough. And I say that, and he has a little bit of a scrape against the outside wall here, but things could be looking very, very good for that 38 of Mr. Brandon Feeney. Let's take a look down on pit lane. Drivers are still making their way down to their boxes. And of course, it's going to take them about 14 seconds to get that work done on their machines, provided they take 4 tires and fuel, which, again, looking around the field, every single driver has taken 4 tires and fuel. And sure enough, that is going to put Feeney up to the top of the docket here. Brandon Feeney is your new race leader. Now the question is, can he maintain this lead on old tires? And it looks like the answer is nope, not right now. Mike Moultrie Jr. takes the race lead once again here in that Whipple Superchargers number 3. Up +5 from where he qualified. Brandon Feeney right now at +8 on this alternate strategy. I don't know, that 38 might still have something up his sleeve, but right now, things not looking super great here for Brandon as he falls back now to 1.7. Now we make it 1.8. And how about 1.9 seconds back? Take a further look back. Let's see how the other drivers are catching him. Here comes Aspinall. Again, well, about 15 lap newer tires. There's Garrett Hess and Jarrett Bolliard coming up on Feeney now as well. Feeney keeping it up high, pretty much just staying out of everyone's way here in that 38 machine. I'm now curious to see, are we going to see Feeney make a second stop, or is he just going to stay out and try and run what he's got to the end? Because these drivers should still have more tires down on pit lane should they decide to use them. But right now, last time by, looking at the lap times, Feeney is close to 2 seconds off the pace from the rest of the field right now. Sure enough, we see Charles Jennings make the pass on Feeney. It's going to be Nick Fuller and Daniel Wiles, the next drivers to come up on Feeney, but they're about 3 seconds back right now. They're having a little bit of their own battle here, battling for the 7th position. Looking around at the pit lane times, it looks like Fuller and Wiles actually had some of the slowest pit stops on the field, all in the 40-second or 46-second range. Everyone else 44 to 45 seconds on pit lane. Even Logan Murphy, Sparks, all at the tail end of the field were in the 44 or 45 second range. So a little bit of trouble here for these two drivers under their pit stops. The actual time in their pit box looks about good, so there's nothing different in terms of the work that their crew actually did on the cars. It was just entirely on their entries and exits into pit lane that slowed them down here a little bit. Currently being scored back into the 7th and 8th position. With how spread out the field is, it's going to be a little bit difficult to make that ground back up. They are both catching up on that 38 of Brandon Feeney here, so that's going to be bumping Feeney back on down to the 8th position. Garrett Streets is not all that far behind either. And we're going to see Streets start to get involved with this as well. As we see that Liquid Molly 38 fall down a couple of more positions here. Battle between Wiles and Fuller is still the closest battle on the speedway here, and they're starting to get a little bit spread out from each other. Call it about 3-4 tenths of a second between the two of them. Now Wiles and Fuller are starting to close that gap back up just a little bit. Just behind, Streets has gotten around Feeney as well, so Feeney's now falling back to 9th. 3 seconds back from being bumped outside of the top 10 by Jeremy Morrow. Taking a look down from the blimp camera here as the field starts to get a little bit spread out here at Kansas. Unless the caution flag comes out, really the big question here is who's going to be able to best conserve their resources, make these tires last to the end without completely burning them off. Right now, Mike Moultrie leads the field with a 2.4 second lead. Is that going to be a pace that he can maintain for another 40 laps? Down below, you see Wiles and Fuller going around that 24 of Corey Logan. Currently only lap car on the speedway. If a caution flag flies, Corey Logan will be getting put back on the lead lap here. A little bit further up, Garrett Hess starting to get a little bit of pressure from behind from Mr. Jarrett Bolyard, down to about 0.2 of a second dividing these two drivers. And they're actually starting to close in on Aspinall as well. Aspinall has fallen down to being within a second of Hess and Bolyard. Looking like Bolyard has a good bit of speed here to play with in that good wrench number 97 though. Closed the distance pretty darn fast, and sure enough, the last time by, about 0.2 of a second different between Bolyard and Hess, and sure enough, Bolyard's going to make the pass here as we come across the line. 31.87 to 32.07, so exactly 0.2 of a second between Bolyard and Hess last time around. And Tyler Aspinall now begins to pull it back away from the field up to a 1.2 second lead over Bolyard and Hess here. So these two drivers kind of find themselves in a situation where they need to work together if they want to catch back up to the race leaders, and the difference in lap times here is going to make that kind of difficult to pull off. Because again, last time by, exactly 0.2 of a second between Bolyard and Hess. Of course, Bolyard having the advantage there, 31.83 to 32.23. So excuse me, again, I don't know how to do math. That is 0.4 of a second between Bolyard and Hess, and sure enough, Hess has fallen back to about 0.7 of a second over this number 97 good wrench machine. So already 2/3 of the way through tonight's event. Once we get another lap or two in the books, only 34 minutes have elapsed so far. So these drivers are really nailing their way through this race pretty darn quickly. All green flag laps so far here for our championship event. Everyone is playing nice with each other so far here this evening, which is a little bit surprising to see, considering I explicitly posted an announcement in the server saying that Garrett Hess has won the championship no matter what happens here tonight. Mathematically, he is locked in that 0-0. It does not matter where he finishes. He is the champion. So I told everyone else to drive like hell. And I'll tell you what, there's been some crazy battles here so far in tonight's event, but everyone's still being really nice and respectful with each other. And I'll tell you what, the closer we get to the end of this race, the opportunities for cautions only further shrink as the field gets more strung apart, and these drivers back at the tail end of the field might be cursing themselves just a little bit. because they're really going to need that yellow flag to fly for them to get back into this race. Jared Bolyard starting to close the gap here on Tyler Aspinall. And last time around, Bolyard was 0.3 of a second faster than Aspinall, and Aspinall a little bit slower than Garrett Hess, so Bolyard has some late run speed here to be playing with. The gap to the race leader is also closed down to 1.9 seconds. And with a little bit over 30 laps to go, that is enough time that Bolyard could potentially close that gap if he keeps this pace going as good as he has it right now. It is definitely possible, because the last time by, Bolyard was 0.5 of a second faster than our race leader, Mike Moultrie Jr. Bolyard just going to narrowly clear Aspinall there. That was a little bit scary. But he is clear, and now just has to close that now 1.5 second gap to our race leader. A little bit further back, Daniel Wiles, Charles Gettings are battling it out here just a bit. Battling it for the 5th position. Gettings been having a bit of a quiet race so far here tonight, but he's up +2 from where he qualified, so that is an improvement for the driver of that Budweiser number 96. Getting ready to be 30 laps left to go here at Kansas, though. A lot of these drivers don't have a lot of room left to play with, and I'll tell you what, Mr. Mike Moultrie Jr. here might be sweating a little bit of bullets here, because that gap has now closed down to less than a second between himself and Bolyard. Let's see how the lap times shake up when they cross the line. 32.4 for Moultrie, 32.06 for Bolyard. So again, 0.4 of a second difference between first and second is gaining mighty darn quick here on our race leader. He has got a whole lot of speed here this evening, particularly in the later run of things. Bolyard was one of the drivers, was one of the last ones to pit on lap number 50. The only drivers that came after him were Wiles and Fuller on 51. Everyone else was between 48, 47, 46. And Moultrie was on 48. So I think it's more a little bit of difference of who is pushing their car harder here, because I don't think that 2 laps of difference on the tires making this substantial of a difference between Moultrie and Bolyard's lap times. Bolyard going all the way down to the grass there as he gets the gap down to 0.35 of a second. He is hounding down on our race leader. Still side by side further back for Wiles. Now Wiles battling it out with Garrett Hess, battling it out for 4th. So Wiles, another driver that has a little bit of late run speed to be playing with here as he tries to wiggle his way around that 00 machine, and it looks like he is going to be getting it here down through 3 and 4. Sure enough, Wiles is going to make the pass. Now can he keep it? Garrett Hess going to send it down low a little bit. Thought about trying to make a move, decided not to. He backed out of it there in that 00. And again, last time by, we see a situation where it's a 0.2 of a second difference between these two drivers, as sure enough, Brandon Feeney is going to make the call to come down pit lane in that 38 machine. So that will probably be putting him back into the last position here. I believe that will put Corey Logan around him, in which case Corey will still be in the lucky dog position should the caution flag fly. And it looks like the call is going to be 4 tires again for that 38 machine, but it's going to be a little bit too little too late, because we're going to be within 25 to go here in the next couple of moments. Jared Bolyard, Mike Moultrie Jr., the gap has closed down to 0.3 of a second for the race lead, and once again, we see the battle duking out between the 2 Goodwrench-inspired cars. Mike Moultrie, a win to his name. Bolyard, not quite yet. Made his debut race last week at Bristol, I want to say. Yep, last week at Bristol. Took home a 5th place finish overall. And of course, Mike Moultrie took home the win back at Bristol. So Bolliard's now trying to come in here, prove that he deserves to have his name in the ASRC record book just as much as Moultrie does. 25 laps to go from our flagman, though. We are in the closing chapters here of tonight's event. And the gap for the race lead has closed down to under 0.2 of a second. That's only about a car length between the two of them. Bolliard just got to get up to him and figure out how he's going to make that move. Will we see any sort of defense from Moultrie? Both drivers keeping it up high this time around. Moultrie going down a little bit lower, trying to make sure he closes the door, make sure that 3 machine doesn't really, or excuse me, that 97 doesn't really have a good opportunity to get around him. Once again, going down through the high line, trying to keep the car up as high, close to the wall as possible. Especially as we've gotten into the later portions of the run, the bottom of the track has just become harder and harder to use in the corners. You just have to lift so much to get the car to rotate. Basically, you have to hug it against the wall. The question is, how close are you willing to get against it? Because as soon as you scrape against it, you're done. You're going to be losing all of your momentum. But the closer you can get to it, the better here. Bolliard and Moultrie now within a 1/10 of a second of each other. He's right on the bumper. How are we going to see him go for the move? He pulls it down low. I don't know if that's going to stick here. That low line has been such a struggle for these drivers to utilize side by side coming out of the corner. Moultrie is still being scored as the race leader here, and sure enough, Bolliard's going to pull back into line and have to try and make the move again. That bottom line is just not sticking here, even for Bolliard, who has done such a good job managing his tires so far. He just can't make the bottom of the track stick. Of course, down in the tri-oval portion of the track, that doesn't really matter there because the banking is much less severe than it is in the corners. He's going to pull down low, though. He's going to try and go for the move again down into 3 and 4. Will he be able to get to stick? Yes, he will. He has cleared the 3 car. He is trying to drift up. It's not going to work. Moultrie back up to the front again. 20 to go as we cross the line. There's only so many more opportunities that Bolliard's going to have to try to make that move. And they are going to be going away a whole lot faster than these drivers think. And now Bolliard's in a bit of a difficult position. He's fallen back to nearly 0.3 behind Moultrie. And last time by, Moultrie was actually the faster of the 2 drivers here. Bolliard's got to play his cards carefully here. He doesn't want to burn his tires off trying to make this pass. Honestly, it's just kind of a game of cat and mouse. Moultrie just needs to keep Bolliard behind him. And as long as Bolliard's pushing as hard as he is trying to make this pass, he might not have any tires left when it matters most here. Back at the tail end of the field, Feeney has passed Logan, so should the caution flag fly, Feeney will now be the lucky dog and get put back on the lead lap. And actually looking at the time and scoring, it looks like we may see lap traffic come into an effect here in the next couple of laps if we keep this thing green. That could make all the difference that Bolliard needs here. Down to 0.15 of a second. Once again, Bolliard has closed the gap back up. Now he just has to figure out how he's going to execute that move. Because again, if he messes it up and falls back to 3/4 behind Moultrie again, he's going to have to waste another 5 or so laps just closing the gap back up before he can try to go for it again. And all the while, he is burning off more rubber than that number 3 machine is, and that could be very costly when we get within 10 to go here. Very slight scrape against the outside wall for that number 97 machine. Doesn't look like it slowed him down at all. But it just goes to show how antsy these drivers are getting here in the final closing stages of tonight's event. All it takes is one move for all of the marbles here this evening. Bulliard still hot on Moultrie's tail here. He's going to pull it down low. He's going to try for it in 3 and 4 again. And nope, he backs out of it. He does not have the track position to make that happen. And just like that, the gap goes back up to almost 0.3 of a second here. Bulliard's going to have to spend another lap and 2 closing that back up before he can try again. 15 to go from our flagman up there. And things are looking a little bit hairy for that number 97 with his tire wear here. He is still able to close in on Moultrie, but he's not doing it anywhere near as rapidly that we saw him doing it 10-15 laps ago. And he's in a really tricky spot. He probably only has maybe 1 or 2 opportunities left to try and go for a move. No pressure out the back. Aspinall and Daniel Wiles are 3 and 4 seconds back respectively. So all he has to worry about is playing his cards right here with Mike Moultrie Jr. He's back to 0.35 of a second over Moultrie. Last time by 0.08 of a second slower in terms of lap time. Let's see how it shakes up when we cross the line here. Bulliard faster this time around by 0.04 of a second. This is going to be really close. Bulliard and Moultrie are kind of equal with each other in terms of tire wear now, it seems like. Bulliard is not having anywhere near the momentum we saw him have earlier. And with 13 to go, it's really hard to hedge your bets here. Now we see Moultrie driving down to the bottom of the track as well, trying to get a little bit of extra speed to play with here. I think he knows the same thing we do up here. Bulliard's really only got one more shot to try and make this move happen. And now is the time where he really needs to try and build up a little bit of a gap here if he can. Just try and stall the 97 for as long as he can. And make sure that should the 97 make that move again and not manage to make the move work again, that he won't have time to recover. 11 laps left to go, and we are starting to see lap traffic up in front of our race leaders. Michael Sparks, Derek Murphy, both up there. Well, definitely Michael Sparks. That might have not been Murphy that we saw up in front of him. Not quite sure who that was up there. But there's at least one lap car that is getting rapidly hounded by these race leaders, and that could make all the difference here in this battle. Big double high five up in the air. Going to be 10 to go this time by Moultrie and Bulliard once again down within a car length of each other, and it looks like that is the 24 of Corey Logan. That is also up there. Bulliard losing a little bit of time through 1 and 2, but nothing too drastic. There's the 42 trying to keep it down near the bottom of the track, just staying out of the way of these race leaders. He wants nothing to do with this battle that's going on. And as he keeps it down at the bottom of the track, that means neither of them can do their dive down to the apron that they've been doing these last couple times around. And that's going to allow Bulliard to actually keep that gap a little bit closer than before. 9 to go here at Kansas, though. The clock is ticking, and it is ticking mighty darn fast for these two drivers. Every single lap they complete is only more stress, more pressure put on both of their shoulders. Moultrie, a win to his name last week at Bristol. Bulliard trying for his first here in the league. Both of them coming up on that CZ Robotics 24 of Corey Logan, going to be putting them a second lap down here. That's also going to be pushing the two of them offline, and we see Moultrie check up a little bit. That might be the opportunity Bulliard needs. 3 wide. Bulliard, your new race leader. He's going to clear Mike Moultrie Jr., but Moultrie's not out of it yet. He catches back up side by side coming out of turn number 4. Moultrie will be scored as your race leader across the line. Boyard's going to have to do something drastic here if he wants to make it happen, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Caution flag out at Kansas with 7 laps left to go. I'll tell you what, race fans, it was going to come down to the wire no matter which way you cut it. And it was just a little bit too much too late there. The caution flag is going to fly. We're going to see Brandon Feeney be scored as the lucky dog here, put back on the lead lap. And of course, he pit back on lap 72, put new tires on. And everyone should still have tires left on pit lane, so I'm curious to see, will we see the whole field come down and pit? But for now, let's take a quick look back at that incident between our 2 race leaders, Mike Moultrie Jr., Jarrett Bolyard, down into 1 and 2. And I think that 97 of Bolyard just carried a little bit more speed into the corner than he was expecting. Taking another look back, let's ride on board with Bolyard here. The 3 machine comes up, and I think Bolyard just had a little bit more speed going into the corner than he was expecting to have. And when you're within 7 laps to go, everything is coming down to the wire here. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to just get the car stopped like that. So that's going to be the cause of our first caution here of the evening, and would you believe it? Every single driver except Michael Sparks, Brandon Feeney, and Corey Logan are coming down pit lane. Corey looks like they're staying out to try and get the wave around, and it looks like Sparks getting the wave around as well. Or at least they should be, but everyone else is down on pit lane right now. Let's see who decides to win the battle off of pit lane. Decides like they have much of a choice here. And it looks like the first driver that's going to be coming out here is actually Jeremy Morrow in the 74. Then it's going to be Tyler Aspinall, Daniel Wiles, Nick Fuller, Derek Murphy, Jeremy Morrow. Both went 2 tire stops here. That's put Morrow up to the race lead with damage to his car, but that puts Morrow up to the race lead with the shortest pit stop of anyone else on the field by about 5 seconds. I don't think we had Morrow on our bingo card to be leading the field to green in the maybe final restart of the race, question mark? I'll tell you what, race fans, we are going to see some shenanigans go down here. Michael Sparks now down in pit lane. We should see Logan and Feeney getting waved around the pace car here. Lights are still on the pace car, so we're going to be going another lap. We should see Logan and Feeney get their wave arounds last lap of this yellow. So once we get the one to go from race control, we should see these wave arounds happen. But Jeremy Morrow in a somewhat battle-scarred number 74 will be leading the field to green. Tyler Aspinall was outside in the Giant Eagle entry. That's going to be Daniel Wiles, Nick Fuller, Garrett Hess, Derek Murphy, Garrett Streets, Charles Gettings, Jason Gardner, Mike Moultrie Jr., your top 10. Both Moultrie and Bolyard looked like they potentially had some damage to get repaired here. They're starting back in 10th and 11th respectively. And Michael Sparks working his way back up to the tail end of the field. And we should get word from race control this time of bye to wave around Feeney and Logan. So Logan does not look like they'll be put back on the lead lap here. They will be put 1 lap down. Feeney should be put back on the lead lap here. Lights are out on the iRacing.com pace car, and sure enough, Logan and Feeney are getting the wave around. So they are on their way to catch up to the tail end of the field. Logan not on the lead lap. Feeney is. And we're going to stack them up 2 by 2. It's going to be Morrow and Aspinall, your front low. as there seems to be a little bit of confusion on who goes where here. As far as I can tell on my timing and scoring, it's scoring Jeremy Morrow as the race leader. I don't know if that is actually true or not. We're going to find out when we go green flag race in one way or another. But as far as I can tell, it's Morrow, Aspinall, Wiles, and Fuller, your top four. Then it's going to be Garrett Hess, Derek Murphy, row 3. Streets and Gettings, row 4. Gardner and Mike Moultrie Jr., row 5. That's going to be Boyard and Sparks, row 6. So everyone is on the lead lap here with the exception of Corey Logan. Things are about to get very, very dramatic here in Kansas. iRacing.com makes the dive down to pit lane. Things are about to get very dangerous very quickly for that iRacing safety car. Green flag's up in the air. Let's see what happens here at Kansas. Morrow off to an early lead. He got a very good run there. Everyone else immediately darting up to the high line. They want that high line as soon as possible. I say that Aspinall and Fuller both elect to go down to the low line, and that actually looks like it's going to get them around Daniel Wiles. So, of course, as long as the caution flag does not fly before we take the white, then we will not go into overtime. Should a yellow flag come out, then we will rack him back up and try it again. Jeremy Morrow leads the way. White flag up in the air. This will be the end of the race next time by, no matter what happens. Wiles on the outside, nose to tail, with Fuller and Aspinall just behind. It looks like Morrow not quite able to keep the pace up on that two-tire strategy. So now the question is going to be, who can take home the race win? Right now, things are looking really good for Daniel Wiles. Nick Fuller starting to close the gap out of 3 and 4, but I don't think it's going to be enough. As they have a little bit of contact back for third. Daniel Wiles takes home the win here at Kansas. And back in the 6th position, the 00, Garrett Hess, is going to be your champion here for season number 13. I'll tell you what, race fans, all things considered, that was a much more tame, effectively green-white checkered tree start there than what I was expecting there. But Daniel Wiles has been basically in every position around the field here tonight. He's going to be able to get it done here this evening in the number 17. In that AMP energy machine. Having a little bit of connection issues, but that's okay. He just won a race. Locked himself into the record books here of the ASRC Oval Series. And now he has a little bit of experience under his belt to bring with him heading into the next, or the Gen 4 car next season. For our full-length 36-week NASCAR season. That is going to be one heck of a ride. And it looks like we have a little bit of a full party down here. Daniel Wiles, Nick Fuller, and looks like Aspinall all down there. But we will be back here in just a moment, race fans, with some words with your top 3 finishers here this evening and your season champion. So don't go anywhere, and we will be back here in just a moment, race fans. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to Kansas. Welcome back to Season 13 of the ASRC Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. A champion has been declared here for season number 13. Before we get down to talk to him, though, a driver in their debut start here with the league manages to take home the race win here tonight. Mr. Daniel Wiles, how are you feeling here this evening?
Feeling good, man. First time in the league. I know we came in at the tail end of this season, but we're ready for the Gen Fours. Um, Good, clean racing. I mean, it was good. That was a good race.
Yeah, it was definitely a heck of a show all throughout the field, and honestly, I mean, it seemed like you were kind of all over the place in every single position here in the field. Before that caution flag came out, what did you think your chances of potentially taking home a win tonight were?
None. I was just trying to get third from my teammate, but yeah, I messed up in the beginning of the race going for the lead. Once you get these cars on the wall, they get stuck, and I didn't want to wreck the field, so I kind of just went to the back, and then yeah, I was playing catch up from there.
I mean, I guess fate works in mysterious ways, though. When that caution flag came out, I think it kind of threw everyone off their game. What did you end up having to do there to get up to the front of the field?
Well, I was just trying to make sure I didn't take Jeremy out. I don't know if he took two tires on that pit stop. I'm looking back at the replay. I see he even has damage, so I didn't want to take him out. So I was trying to get clear of Tyler. And then I think once we got clear from them, I had a good feeling that I could take it. So yeah, just not trying to cause a mass wreck at the end was all I was trying to do.
Fair enough. I mean, it worked out one way or another. And of course, you said it here yourself, getting ready for running the Gen 4 car next season. How much is the ARCA car really good for getting yourself prepared for that more difficult car next season?
It's pretty good. I mean, with the low horsepower in these things, they're nothing compared to the Gen 4 as far as like the handling around the tracks and stuff. But it's still a good little bit of practice with it. They don't stick to the track as well as like the trucks and next or Xfinities and next gens, but that horsepower of those Gen 4s are what is sets them different, sets them apart.
Fair enough. I know one thing's for sure, next season is bound to be one heck of a show. But for now, before I let you go celebrate your win, start getting ready for running that Gen 4 car. The microphone is all yours, Mr. Wiles. Who do you want to thank for making everything happen here tonight?
Just thank my teammates at America Racing, Storm Sim Performance, SM Racing Products. Um, yeah, you guys up in the booth, and yeah, my family, my wife, my kids that allow me to do this. So yeah, appreciate it. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Good deal. That sounds like a plan to me. Congratulations on the win tonight, and thank you for coming out.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Finishing back position number two, another driver making their debut start here in the league, ending up on the podium here tonight. It was a heck of a race, Nick. How are you feeling here this evening?
Yeah, feeling pretty good. Didn't have the fastest car, but ended up lucking out with a second place finish. I think mostly just didn't have a very fast green flag stop. About it. But other than that, ran a pretty good race and got there at the end with a chance. And yeah, all around good clean race.
Yeah, I know in the early goings of things, you were pretty far up in the field. Did you, coming into tonight, I guess, were you expecting to be walking away on the podium?
No, not necessarily. Honestly, this is the first time in here. I thought it was going to be the Gem 4 car, so I definitely did not think I was going to have a chance. Then I saw it was the Arca car, and I was like, okay, I definitely have a chance because I've just ran the Arca car way more. So, in that sense, I felt pretty good once I saw that. But looking forward to the Gen 4 car next year. Having that experience. I don't run that a ton, just every now and then on ranked, but yeah, not nearly like most of the other common series.
Good deal. Well, I'm definitely excited to see what the Gen 4 manages to throw at all y'all. But before I let y'all go, I do have to ask, on that final restart, what do you think might have had to have gone different there for you to be taking home the checkered flag here tonight?
I think it went pretty well until we hit the white, and then we came into turn 1, and I tried to run the middle, and I got a little tight. Maybe if I ripped the top, because I think I had enough room between me and fourth, then I could have got closer to Daniel, and then maybe bumped him a little bit. I don't want to wreck him, but maybe make him drive in a little too deep or something. Tires are probably a little fresh for a slide job, so it would have been real tough at that to get from where I was to get past Daniel. But I did get a little tight there coming into 1, and I lost a little bit of momentum.
Fair enough. Still a really solid run here in your debut race at that. You've beat multiple drivers here tonight that have taken home league championships before, so that is certainly something to be proud of. Of course, before I kick you out of my broadcast booth and let you start getting ready for running the Gen 4 car next season, who do you want to thank for making everything happen here tonight?
Yeah, well, first and foremost you guys for putting on the broadcast. Everybody who runs the league, I'm sure I'll get to know all you guys better. Thank my teammates, also at America Racing. We all came in, found this league, joined as a unit. Looking forward to getting it on. And yeah, of course, thank my family here. I got my wife upstairs who, if the kids wake up, because I'm on the East Coast, she's takes over on these nights that I'm racing. So yeah, appreciate that, and everything you guys do.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on the podium finish, and I look forward to seeing you in season number 14.
Thank you. Have a good night.
And finishing back in position number 3, Mr. Jeremy Morrow, you're up plus 11 from where you qualified. You made something happen here tonight. How are you feeling?
Feeling pretty good. I when we got that last caution, I knew that I had a damaged car. I started dead last, bounced it off the wall in qualifying, bounced it off a wall again early in the race, and kind of figured I had to try something. So took 2 tires and ended up working out.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see you at the front of the field after that pit cycle. I thought maybe you were staying out to like get a wave around or something. And it's like, nope, he pitted, and it worked out.
Yeah, I was running back there. I think I was 8th or 9th, and really felt like I was probably an 8th or 9th place car, and had to take a risk. No reason to not try something at that point when you're in the back.
Sure enough, you gotta kind of just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And if nothing else here tonight, you get to say you did better from your teammate of Mr. Garrett Streets. I'm sure that feels nice to say.
Yeah, that's probably the first and last time that's going to happen in a while. He's usually got my number.
Hey, who knows? You got 36 attempts to do it here in season number 14 coming up in a couple of weeks. How are you feeling about trying to tackle the Gen 4 car?
Feeling really good. I'm really excited. That's probably my favorite car. I'm not always the fastest in it, but I just love driving it. The thing's a blast to drive. So really looking forward to next season and getting to run that car a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm certainly excited to see what all goes on out there. And of course, I got to give a big thank you to the SM Racing Products crew for being on board here with the league for it's got to be over a year now, right? I think we're getting close to 2 years now, I think.
Yeah, I think this is probably next season's our 1-year anniversary.
Good deal. Well, it's been a heck of a ride so far. I'm excited to see what crazy stuff goes on next season, and it's been a pleasure having you all on board here with us.
Yeah, thank you guys for having us. Thank you very much to you and Jason and everybody else that helps run the league and gets everything going week to week.
Yes, sir. And I guess you kind of sort of answered my question here, but of course, before I send you out here tonight, who do you want to thank for making everything happen here in tonight's race?
Yeah, you and Jason for sure, and thanks to Garrett, the other half of SM Racing Products. He's been doing an awesome job recently here, so thanks to him for everything he does. Thanks to Caitlin, if she's watching, for supporting me and doing everything she does, and just you guys for sure for putting all this on.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on taking home a podium, and I look forward to seeing what y'all can get up to in season 14.
Thank you, Aiden.
Then finishing back in position number 5, Mr. Garrett Streets. You walked into tonight's event with the championship in hand, but you still had another opportunity to take home a race win. How are you feeling here this evening?
Well, it wasn't the pace that I wanted, but doggone it, we won the championship, baby.
Yes, sir, that you did, in a really solid fashion as well. 5 wins to your name at all sorts of different kinds of tracks, and really no one came close to you here this season. You put on a heck of a show.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was really trying hard on that last restart to get 5th place, to try to keep the top 5 streak throughout the entire season, but came up 1 position short. It is what it is. But I'm just happy to be able to win my first league championship. I've never won one before, so this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I can only imagine. You got me beat a little bit. I haven't won a race here in ASRC yet, but hey, there's a first time for everything, and tonight you are a champion for the first time here in ASRC.
Yeah, I don't know how many races I'm gonna be doing next season. Like, I know I've said this before, not the biggest fan of the Gen 4 cars, and I have floated the idea to you that maybe here and there I could help you in the booth, because it always helps to get the commentary skills honed, especially when I have to do it for different leagues. But I'll definitely still be a part of ASRC, even if I'm not running full time next season.
Sure enough, and I mean, if nothing else, if you're up here in the broadcaster booth, I can't give you the commentator's curse, so you got that going for you.
Oh yeah, but that means I can give others the commentator's curse.
To be fair, I won't stop you. I can have some guilt taken off my shoulders. Of course.
Yeah, we can share it. We can share it.
Yeah, that works. I think the only question really I have left to give you, though, is what do you think might have had to have been done different here tonight for you to be walking home with your 6 checkered flag?
Nothing really. I've never really been a fan of Kansas. I was just terrible at saving my tires. I slapped the wall a couple times. I think that if I didn't slap the wall a few times, I might have had enough handling to fend off Garrett Streets, but he had just a rocket of a car. So sometimes it could just be hard to fend someone off, especially when you can't block them. But, all that's water under the bridge now.
Sure enough, either way, you got a championship to your name. You've had an absolutely amazing season, and now you're able to finally take a little bit of a deep breath and relax now that everything's said and done. Of course, though, the big question, though, who do you want to thank not only for tonight's race, but for putting together this entire season-long championship for you?
Well, I really want to thank you and all the admins for hosting this. It wouldn't be possible without y'all. Everyone who's been watching the streams, supporting the streams, everyone who's been showing up to the races, even though if it's just for one, you're still appreciated by me. I want to thank, of course, my brother. I want to thank the St. Mary's County Public School System, Everfrost, Team Watson Racing, and probably some others that I can't think of right now. I'm on a little bit of a dopamine rush right now.
Good deal. Fair enough. Well, it's been a pleasure having you out here in the league. Congratulations on taking home a championship here in ASRC, and I look forward to seeing you next season, both out on the track and up here in the broadcasting booth.
Yes, sir. I'll see you around.
You heard it here first, race fans. Your top 3 finishers and your championship winner here for season number 13. But of course, those weren't the only drivers out here in the field. Let's take a look down and see how the rest of the field shook out. Of course, these are unofficial race results. But it's going to be Daniel Wiles in the 17, taking home his first win of this league in his debut race, followed by Nick Fuller, another driver making his league debut, bringing home position number 2. Back in third, that's going to be one half of the SM Racing Products crew. That is Jeremy Morrow back in third, followed by Tyler Aspinall. And the other half of the SM Racing Products team, Garrett Streets, running out the top 5. Back in sixth, that's going to be league champion Garrett Hess, first ever championship here in ASRC. Though he's come close a couple times in the past. I remember back all the way in season number 1, Hess was a force to be reckoned with. But all the way now in season 13, Garrett Hess is going to get it done. Back in 7th, that's going to be Charles Jennings, followed by Mike Moultrie Jr. back in 8th. League admin Jason Gardner is going to be bringing it home, position number 9, followed by Derek Murphy rounding out the top 10 here this evening. Back in 11th, that's going to be the 97 of Jarrett Boyard, followed by the 42 of Michael Sparks. Brandon Feeney going to bring it home back in 13th with Corey Logan in the CZ Robotics 24, rounding out the tail end of this 14-car field here this evening. Of course, that's all we've got here for tonight's event here at Kansas. That's all we've got here for season 13 of the ASRC Oval Series. Next season, going to be shaking things up in the biggest way this league has ever seen. 36 weeks of competition to crown an overall NASCAR Gen 4 champion. And I'll tell you what, right now we already have, looks like about 30 drivers who have at least voiced their interest in joining the series. So we might see some crazy big fields, some crazy big races for season number 14. But for now, we're just going to have to be a little bit patient. Gonna be taking next week off, and then we'll be right back into the racing action, opening up in the Gen 4 car at Daytona, March 18th, 2024. Same date, same time, Monday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. It's bound to be one heck of a race. For now, though, thank you all for tuning in for tonight's event. Thank you all for coming out and supporting the league and this broadcast for another season of competition. It has been one heck of a ride. For now, have a good evening, race fans, and we hope to see y'all in season number 14.